The legal battle was already underway, a high-stakes confrontation poised to redefine the landscape of American commerce. In September of this year, a monumental antitrust lawsuit was launched against Amazon, the e-commerce titan whose market share in the United States currently hovers around 36% in 2023, dwarfing its closest competitor, Walmart, which holds a mere 6%. This aggressive legal action, spearheaded by the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, under the leadership of Chair Lina Khan, signals a significant regulatory shift. But here's the paradox: if Amazon truly wields monopolistic power, why do its financial statements consistently show razor-thin operating profit margins? We'll delve into the complex reasons behind this apparent contradiction later in this segment, exploring whether the FTC's claims are truly justified. When President Biden appointed Lina Khan to chair the FTC in 2021, it signaled an imminent regulatory crackdown targeting major technology companies. Khan is widely recognized within legal circles for her advocacy of a more robust enforcement stance. In fact, while still a law student in 2017, she authored a seminal paper titled Amazon's Antitrust Paradox. In it, she posited that while Amazon might appear to benefit consumers through wider selection and reduced prices, its overwhelming market dominance grants it undue leverage to stifle rivals, ultimately harming consumers in the long run. The fundamental principle of antitrust law is to prevent monopolists from exploiting their market power to generate excessive profits at the expense of their customers. Amazon's revenue growth has indeed been remarkable, surging from $136 billion in 2016 to over $500 billion by 2022. However, its operating profit margins have remained notably slender, typically ranging between 2% and 5% of revenue during this period. Amazon operates through three primary segments: North America, International, and Amazon Web Services, or AWS. The North America segment encompasses all non-AWS revenue generated within North America, including direct e-commerce sales, fees from third-party sellers, Amazon Prime subscriptions, and advertising. The International segment mirrors this structure for regions outside North America. AWS, distinct from the core e-commerce operations, manages its web hosting and cloud computing services. While the majority of Amazon's revenue originates from e-commerce and related income streams, with AWS contributing a smaller portion, the profit picture is reversed. AWS consistently accounts for the lion's share of profits in most years. In fact, international e-commerce has recorded losses in all but one of the past 8 years, and North American e-commerce also experienced losses in 2022. The disparity in operating profit as a percentage of revenue is even more striking. Margins for North American e-commerce peaked in 2018 at approximately 5% and have since declined. In contrast, AWS consistently reports operating margins between 25% and 30% of revenue. This suggests that AWS serves as the primary cash cow, while the e-commerce division barely manages to break even. The FTC's lawsuit, however, primarily targets the core e-commerce business with its monopoly allegations. If a supposed monopoly can only achieve operating margins below 5%, one might wonder what a non-monopoly would generate. Yet, as is often the case in the business world, the full picture is more intricate than it initially appears. In this analysis, we will explore three potential explanations for this seeming inconsistency. First, the FTC's premise might be flawed, and Amazon may not truly be a monopoly. Second, Amazon might indeed be abusing its monopolistic power but managing its operations so inefficiently that it fails to translate this into extraordinary profits. Third, Amazon could be executing a long-term strategy to eventually capitalize on its dominant market position at some future point. In 2022, global consumers spent approximately $700 billion on products via Amazon, though not all of this sum is recognized as revenue by the company. Broadly, two types of products are sold on Amazon: those directly sold by Amazon and those offered by third-party sellers. For items like Amazon's Alexa devices, Fire TV, and the Amazon Basics collection, these products are either commissioned or procured from third-party contract manufacturers and then resold to end customers. Amazon records the full purchase price as revenue and accounts for its cost of acquiring the item as cost of sales. In 2022, these direct product sales amounted to roughly $240 billion. This figure also includes revenue from the Whole Foods grocery chain, acquired by Amazon in 2017, along with some of their experimental brick-and-mortar stores, though these contribute insignificantly to Amazon's overall scale. The remaining $460 billion of items bought on Amazon's platform originate from third-party sellers. Amazon does not recognize the full purchase price of these items as revenue. Instead, it only records the approximately 15% commission it charges, along with shipping fees if Amazon fulfills the order. This explains why Amazon's reported revenue is less than the total gross value of all orders on its platform. In 2022, Amazon reported $514 billion in revenue and $500 billion in operating expenses, resulting in a $13.5 billion operating profit. These are consolidated figures, including AWS. Amazon does not itemize segment operating expenses, but it appears that the majority of costs associated with AWS fall under the technology and content, sales and marketing, and general and administrative categories. By subtracting the $57 billion in AWS-related operating expenses across these three segments, as well as the $80 billion in AWS revenue, we can reasonably estimate Amazon's income statement without AWS. When AWS is excluded, the operating margin shifts from a positive 2.6% to a negative 2.2%. So, what accounts for Amazon's substantial spending? The largest expense, predictably for any retail enterprise, is the cost of sales. Fulfillment constitutes the next significant cost, also expected given that Amazon handles the majority of its deliveries in-house. Following these are technology and content expenses, which cover the maintenance of its various websites and the billions invested in content for Amazon Prime Video. Finally, there are sales, marketing, and general administrative costs. The magnitudes of these expenses are generally in line with what one would expect for a company of Amazon's size. Overall, the standout expenditure is the $84 billion in fulfillment costs, representing nearly 20% of its revenue. One potential factor contributing to Amazon's limited profitability is its Prime membership program. Consumers pay $15 per month or an annual fee in exchange for complimentary delivery on numerous items, along with access to exclusive video content and other benefits. A Prime subscription provides free delivery for products sold directly by Amazon, as well as for third-party sellers participating in the program. These sellers incur a per-order fee, which is partially subsidized by the customer's monthly subscription. If a consumer places numerous orders with free Prime delivery, the financial losses incurred by Amazon due to subsidized fulfillment could surpass the Prime subscription revenue. Nevertheless, Amazon is actively striving to enhance the profitability of its core business. Over the past 2 years, the company has laid off nearly 20,000 employees and continuously seeks to boost the efficiency of its fulfillment operations. In the first 9 months of 2023, these cost-cutting measures began yielding results, with the company reporting an approximate 2% operating profit margin, excluding AWS, a notable improvement from the 2% operating loss recorded in the previous year. Despite these efforts, nothing observed so far suggests the kind of extraordinary profits typically associated with monopolies. Consumers and third-party sellers alike seem to derive immense benefits from the platform Amazon has constructed and from the Prime membership program. Given these facts, what justification can the FTC possibly offer for accusing the company of operating an illegal monopoly? From the FTC's perspective, it is not necessary to explain Amazon's low profit margins. While generating extraordinary profits is often an indicator, it is not a prerequisite for an illegal monopoly. FTC Chair Lina Khan, appointed by President Biden, has faced criticism from right-wing commentators who label her an anti-capitalist zealot, accusing her of opposing megatech companies simply due to their size and success. However, the antitrust case against Amazon is not solely an FTC initiative. 17 states have joined the litigation, including several led by Republicans, indicating broad support for reining in Amazon's power. The complaint outlines 4 principal anti-competitive business strategies allegedly employed by the tech giant. First, Amazon is accused of charging excessively high fees to third-party sellers. Second, it allegedly implemented a pay-to-win advertising system. Third, it covertly enforced a lowest price policy to prevent sellers from offering discounts on rival platforms. Finally, it supposedly compelled sellers to utilize Amazon fulfillment to qualify for Amazon Prime's free delivery. Amazon charges a 15% fee on the listed price of products sold by third-party sellers. Additionally, it levies delivery fees for orders fulfilled by Amazon. According to the complaint, a typical third-party seller might pay as much as 50% of their gross revenue to Amazon. While a 50% fee sounds draconian, the bulk of this consists of delivery charges for products sold with free shipping. For inexpensive items, shipping often constitutes the majority of the cost, making it somewhat misleading to discuss the percentage of the order value, as the product price would be significantly lower if shipping were excluded. Overall, this appears to be one of the weaker arguments presented by the FTC. As previously noted, Amazon's profit margins are extremely narrow. The reason these fees are substantial is not because Amazon is extracting excessive profits, but rather because shipping and handling are genuinely expensive. The next point of contention involves advertising. Sellers can pay Amazon to elevate their search results. These listings, though costly, are explicitly labeled as sponsored and typically appear near the top of search results. In 2022, Amazon generated $37 billion from advertising, yet still recorded a loss when AWS was excluded. The FTC contends that this fosters a pay-to-win model, where sellers are compelled to advertise their listings to avoid being overshadowed by competitors who do. Again, I believe this is a relatively weak argument from the FTC. Paid advertising is a standard practice across the retail sector. For decades, brick-and-mortar retailers have charged slotting fees to manufacturers to secure prime shelf space for their products. There is nothing inherently anti-competitive about this. The FTC's subsequent argument, in my opinion, carries significantly more weight. Until 2019, Amazon enforced a regulation prohibiting sellers from listing their products on competing e-commerce platforms at prices lower than those offered on Amazon. The rationale behind this policy was to prevent rival e-commerce platforms from undercutting Amazon's prices by charging lower fees to sellers. Price undercutting represents a crucial strategy that smaller competitors could employ to gain market share from Amazon. Thus, one could readily argue that this lowest price policy was anti-competitive. In 2019, the European Union's Competition Authority initiated an investigation into this practice. Amazon proactively discontinued this policy in both the EU and the US. However, while no longer an explicit policy, it remains the de facto standard. Sellers who list their products on competing platforms at lower prices may find themselves banned from the buy box. The buy box, prominently displayed on the left of the screen with add to cart and buy now buttons, accounts for as much as 80% of all sales on Amazon. If a product is suppressed from the buy box, consumers can still purchase it, but they must click the See All Buying Options button and then select the specific listing. This additional hurdle significantly reduces the likelihood of a sale. Furthermore, Amazon penalizes non-compliant sellers by demoting their listings in search results. Therefore, while outright bans on cheaper sales on other platforms are no longer in effect, Amazon effectively shadow bans them. This creates a powerful incentive for sellers to adhere to Amazon's lowest price policy. Given Amazon's pervasive presence in the e-commerce industry, it would be nearly impossible for an independent merchant to operate a successful business without utilizing its platform. If all independent merchants are selling on Amazon, it becomes effectively impossible for a competitor to undercut them on price. In 2021, the Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba was fined $2.8 billion for implementing a similar policy, although Alibaba's conduct was far more egregious, as it banned third-party sellers from selling on any competing platform, regardless of the prices charged. The final allegation concerns Amazon Prime. To qualify for Amazon Prime eligibility, sellers must use Amazon's fulfillment service. The FTC argues this is unfair because many sellers would prefer to use third-party fulfillment services, but doing so would mean foregoing a substantial volume of sales, as Amazon Prime subscribers typically only purchase Prime-eligible products. I believe this is a relatively weak argument. There are legitimate reasons for Amazon to implement this policy. Amazon advertises 2-day shipping and other fulfillment commitments to its Prime members. To ensure Prime subscribers receive the shipping experience they expect, it makes sense for Amazon to maintain control over the fulfillment process. Overall, the FTC presents a strong case regarding the lowest price policy, but its other arguments seem somewhat tenuous. Amazon vehemently denies abusing its market power and intends to vigorously contest the FTC in court. Complex antitrust cases of this nature can take years to navigate the legal system, so a resolution is unlikely in the near future. In the interim, Amazon will continue its operations as usual. To conclude, let's revisit a pivotal question. If Amazon is indeed abusing its monopoly power as the FTC alleges, why has it failed to achieve extraordinary profit margins? Amazon's business model has historically prioritized the relentless pursuit of market share and customer loyalty, often at the expense of immediate profitability. Given the company's colossal size, one might assume that the time to reap the rewards of its dominant market position has arrived. However, while Amazon commands nearly 40% of the US e-commerce market, e-commerce itself constitutes only about 20% of total retail sales, leaving Amazon considerable room for expansion. Its primary anti-competitive tactic, the lowest price policy, is not designed to maximize short-term profits. Rather, it aims to eliminate smaller competitors and safeguard its dominant position as the e-commerce industry continues to grow. While this policy may not immediately harm consumers, its long-term implications could be significant. Innovative startups might discover more efficient ways to operate an e-commerce platform and potentially unseat Amazon in the future. However, before they can establish their brands, their only viable strategy to gain market share might be to undercut Amazon on price. If Amazon's anti-competitive policies render this impossible, these hypothetical startups could be stifled early on or deterred from entering the market altogether. Consequently, innovation that might otherwise have occurred could be suppressed.